previous video of Module 2, we explained why it is necessary to measure the resource use and pollution emissions of cities. This was mainly in order to propose policies and mitigate their impact. This video also presented some accounting approaches and how each of them presented different facets of urban environmental effects. This video will go through the main accounting methodologies that are behind these accounting approaches. While a great number of accounting methodologies exist to measure the metabolism of cities, this video only shows the most frequently used. These include a plain and simple data collection process, material flow accounting, input-output analysis, and life cycle assessment. Let's start with the one we call here data collection methodology. While a number of studies use it to describe the environmental policies, this is not really a defined methodology and therefore does not have a defined name. In reality, this methodology is a juxtaposition of data coming from different sources. As shown in this illustration, this methodology stitches data tables in order to provide a general overview of a city's metabolism. Each researcher using this so-called methodology is generally including whatever data is available and reliable enough. Kennedy and Horweg proposed here a set of flows that could or should be assessed during when describing an urban metabolism. Similarly to the previous figure, it proposes to include a number of flows that enter, are locally produced, are stocked in the territory, or exit the city. For example, to describe the biomass flows entering your city, you can provide the amount of food or wood imported in the city measured in tons or joules. Another example would be to describe the building material stock of your city through its construction materials such as metals, wood, or plastics. Here is where you can typically find data for this methodology. It can go from statistical reports, census, open data portals, administrative reports coming from environmental or urbanization administrations, utility reports coming from energy, water, and transportation companies, and then existing case studies if this is possible. Now, the pros from this approach is that it treats each flow separately, which is good for looking at the nexus between flows. It also enables to propose more systematic policies. The third positive aspect from this methodology is its looseness. By not having specific guidelines, it enables to be performed at any spatial and temporal scales. This in turn helps to complement metabolic data with urban data. The final aspect is that a number of case studies already exist using this type of methodology. On the flip side, this methodology also presents numerous shortcomings. First, its lack of established methodology. While this was presented as an advantage, it is also an important disadvantage. Because there is no precise guidelines, it makes the comparison between two case studies very difficult and sometimes impossible. Indeed, it is very difficult to know what is hidden behind the numbers of each figure and whether it makes sense to compare them. Sometimes it's like comparing apples and oranges. Another disadvantage from this methodology is that it is highly time-consuming to look for all of the metabolic flows. A detailed study can take between several months to over a year. In addition, every year this study needs to be renewed. In general, you can go back to the same sources and simply update the data, but in some cases, data stop being updated or use a different methodology to be estimated, so you cannot do that anymore. The fourth point is that generally it is criticized as being a black box approach. In other terms, we know what flows enter and exit the city, but we don't have any idea of what causes them. The fifth point is that while this methodology accounts flows that enter and exit, their environmental impact is not measured. For example, 1 ton of imported water does not have the same impact on the environment as 1 ton of imported metals. This echoes with the last limitation of this methodology. Existing case studies only measure the direct flows entering and exiting the system. They do not take into account all of the indirect flows that are embodied through trade. Excluding indirect flows can therefore highly overestimate the sustainability of your city.